Hey, hello everyone, and yeah, thank you for coming. This will be technical talk. There will be code. To be honest, I didn't see as much code on the previous presentations yesterday and today. So yeah, we'll have that. And yeah, we'll be talking about resources and how to manage resources if you have quite a lot of them. And the solution will start with, spoiler alert, YAML. But before this, as tradition requires, a few words about me. So I'm programming for over 15 years now, and to not get bored too much, I'm also teaching, blogging, speaking, like I am right now. And you may think right now, well, never heard of this guy, no wonder. Because I was doing backend, frontend, and for the last few years cloud, and this whole game dev and Godot thing is quite new for me. Like I started a year and a half ago with my friend when we decided to make a game. He's a game designer, so at least one of us has some competences in this area. But important thing for the rest of the presentation is that I'm a programmer and I think like programmer and I work like a programmer. So when I see problems, I tend to solve them like a programmer. Okay, let's go. Quite a lot of things to talk about. Let's not waste too much time and just jump into the next traditional part of the presentation, which is problem context, or the shameless plug disguised as a problem context. So we are making a game. A game is about cards that represent everything. There are simple resources that you can salvage as cards. There are complex constructs that you build. That are humans that you manage. There are also cards. There is fire that will try to burn everything that you build, and there is a vacuum that will try to eat the oxygen you need to survive. And the survive is the name of the game. Like call to text is the name of the game, but the survival is the theme of the game. Because you need to survive on the generational spaceship stranded in outer space, where weird things happen because humans will always be humans, and inhuman corporations will always be inhuman corporations. And both your crafting skills and your morality will be tested. But yeah, the presentation is about resources, and the resource here that we have are the cards. Right now we have 150 of unique cards, and this is only a demo, so more will come. So yeah, we needed a way to define hundreds of individual cards, each with individual graphic, individual capabilities, individual features. So I started looking at, I'm new to this whole thing, started looking at how to do this. So I quickly found my answers. On YouTube, in multiple YouTube tutorials, I found one solution that I could summarize as use custom resources. They are awesome, they are great, you can edit them in the Godot editor, just like the built-in Godot resources. Okay, makes sense. But just to be sure, I also checked the Godot documentation. Yeah, on this big screen it's even somewhat readable, but the most important thing is that there's a lot of points here, and all those bullet points in the Godot documentation describe why custom resources are better than other data formats. Okay, makes sense. I'm convinced. Usually all the examples in all the tutorials look like this. You create your custom resource class. Yeah, so usually it's an enemy with some properties. Here we have texture and hit points. Then you create a resource for each enemy. Yeah, we have 2 enemies. Probably you kind of recognize the sample graphics, the sprites. Okay, makes sense. Let's apply it to our game. And just to be clear going forward, I'm not shaming those YouTube tutorials. They are great and they present totally valid thing. But there is always a but. let's try it. Let's create custom resources. One resource for each of the cards in our game. Yes, one file for each card. Yeah, and we are not on a Z even. Okay, let's get back to the drawing board. If you go back to this documentation on custom resources and scroll down a little bit, there is some section that is the transition for the Unity and the other game engine programmers, the Unreal, sorry, that describes how to create those resources in slightly different way. What's important here is the section at the bottom, this one, that we can create some kind of spreadsheet and generate from this spreadsheet resources. Okay, like I said, I'm a programmer. That's programmatic way of creating something that's much closer to home for me. Yeah, let's maybe try this way. But spreadsheet, okay, but not really best choice for our use case. Our cards have different properties that are sometimes more complex than like simple key values. So maybe a spreadsheet wouldn't be the best way to define them. We need some other data format, and you guessed it, I chose YAML. YAML is a textual data format, maybe some of you are familiar with, where you, in kind of readable way, define whatever you want. And yeah, there are some advantages to this approach. Like I said, easily readable. You can see multiple related things at a time. Yeah, of course, if you have a lot of cards defined, you won't see everything at once. But yeah, usually you have related things next to each other, so it's always easier. You can also navigate and search. You open one document, Control F. If you want to add something, Control C, Control V, just few clicks. I would say that's kind of faster than creating resources and going in Godot editor and drag and dropping things and so on. If you want to rename something, Control R in your IDE, and you just rename all the things in all the cards at once. And yeah, you are not losing sanity managing hundreds of files, and yeah, for me that's a big one. But yeah, there are also some disadvantages. Firstly, YAML is bad. If you know something about YAML, then you probably know that YAML is bad. It's the worst data format. It has a lot of problems and so on, or at least some of the internet say so. But honestly, if you know something about YAML, you probably know that it actually holds the half of the world infrastructure in place. So maybe it's not as bad. But it's technical and scary. In Godot with custom resources, we had those nice like drag and drop, nice form and everything. Here, it's technical. Yeah, but game dev, this is the dev part, yeah? What else? Yeah, no pretty visualization. YAML won't render your sprites. Yeah, that's totally true. And also you won't be able to drag and drop those sprites here. Yeah, and other resources. It's easy to make a typo. Yeah, you can mistype something and things will break, will stop working. Yeah, true. And all those resource benefits that were listed in Godot documentation, yeah, you don't have them here. But I think we can do something about those problems, at least with those 4. I can't help with the top 2, but with those 4, I think we can manage. But before that, important point of clarification, because I could mislead you a little bit, because when I put the title of this presentation, this isn't a greater than sign. Yeah, it's not to tell you that YAML is better than resources. I meant it more as a arrow. Maybe I could be more clear. Well, but we are here. So let's jump to it. And here comes the code. How to do all of that with YAML, with quite a few nice things along the way. First, we'll start with the plugin. We need to create an editor plugin. Why? Because we want our data that we will read from YAML to be available not only in the game that we will run, but also to be available in the editor, because of reasons that will soon be clear. So we create editor plugin. It's literally like 4 lines, not very complex, and all that it does, it creates an autoload singleton that will be available in our editor and in our game. This autoload singleton, the data, also is not very complex. Basically, it does 2 things. Firstly, it reads the YAML with the awesome YAML plugin. This returns the dictionary of data read from the YAML. And the second thing it does, it goes over all the keys in this YAML, yeah, so on all the cards, and creates card data from it. What is card data? Good, glad you asked. This is our resource. And if we focus on the top part, this is exactly the resource that you would create if you would go with the traditional Godot way. You create resource with exported properties where you will assign your values. Yeah? Each card will have own unique values. What's different here is the second part, where we actually get the data from YAML. Yeah? We read the data in the previous step. Now we pass it here, and with the static function we create programmatically this resource. Yeah? So this won't create a file in our file system, in our project. It will be just in a memory, but that's what matters. No magic here. We create this resource, assigned all the values. That's it. Yeah, very easy. That's it. Thank you. No, that's the step 1. There are more steps, because we want to solve all those scary problems, right? So, step 2, assets. This is still the same resource. I just hide the things that are not important for us right now. Assets. We don't have drag and drop for the images or whatever we want to assign. But you know, at least in my case, the relationship between the cards and the resources is 1-to-1. Yeah? For each card we have unique texture, unique image that we want to assign. And since this is unique, of course, yeah, we could go to YAML and for each card to put path to the resource that is the image that we want to use. But that's kind of boring and kind of a lot of typing for nothing, because we can be a little bit smarter about this. Since we have like 1-to-1 relationship, yeah, 1 card, 1 image, we can just put all the images and just match the names, so the card IDs, and then we can load them in a smarter way, so without typing unnecessary stuff. And if you ask me, that's even better than drag and dropping like 200 things. Okay, so 1 problem solved. Let's go further. And yeah, another disclaimer, I love static typing, strong typing, whatever you call it. There are some slight differences. Generally, the whole idea is I would like my code to work. Yeah. What is not safe typing? Stringly typing, as they call it professionally. I know because I'm a programmer. We have string here, yeah, our ID that we pass to create this card. Yeah, we have some spawn card function that will create our card. Yeah, that's kind of important in a game about cards. So we need to tell what card to create. So we provide the ID of this card. Makes sense. But no, that's very, 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 very bad. This is error waiting to happen. You make typo and it won't work or it will crash or whatever. You will rename some card ID and you will want to rename everything in your project and you will miss one usage and again, it will break, but you can tell me right now, well, no problem, I can just Control F across the whole project. Yeah, can you? But we'll Control F this thing between the metal parts as a variable name and metal parts as the ID? Not really. And also, I guess some of you already noticed, but maybe not everyone. Control F won't work here if you want to rename all the metal parts IDs in our projects, because this is not metal parts. I made a typo. This is not L. This is 1. So, what's the alternative? Strongly typing. It would be awesome if we would have constants that hold our card IDs. Yeah, so then instead of putting a string where you can make typo, you just reference constant. You won't make typos because if you make typo, your IDE, so your VS Code, your Godot editor, or whatever else you use will highlight it immediately. Also, you won't have to type everything because you type first few letters and it will complete the rest for you. That's very nice. And if you want to find all usages, you just use your ID again to find usages, and you will find all usages of this ID that will not be together with the similarly named variables. That's still not fully safe because GDScript is not compiled language, so if you remove this ID and don't remove all usages, you won't know this at the time of the game starting, only when you actually will execute the code that is using it. And unfortunately, at this point, I didn't find the good way to statically check all the GDScript, all the scripts in a game for the correctness. So if they are not using something that does not exist, if you know a way, let me know. Otherwise, I hope maybe in future something like this will be possible. Anyway, like I said, would be great to have those IDs, but yeah, we don't have them, right? We need to create them ourselves. And how to do this? Yeah, we'll just generate the code that defines them. We are again in our data script, in our data singleton where we loaded the cards. So now we'll do a second thing here. We'll generate the script. We want to do this only in the editor. Yeah, so that's one important thing why we need this singleton to work in editor, because yeah, we don't want to generate code in runtime like in the game on our player's computer, and it wouldn't work. So we just create a code just as you would write down yourself. So we create constants for each of the IDs, and also as a bonus we create an array that holds all the IDs as well, because this will be useful in a second. And then, yeah, we create new GDScript, which coincidentally is a resource. So we can assign the code and use resource saver to save it. And yeah, as a result, we have our script that is generated and holds all the IDs. Now we can use those IDs instead of those strings everywhere. Not so hard, but the IDs, the constants that we can use are not the only advantage that we can use in the code, are not the only advantage, because we can do one more trick, and we can also not use the strings in editor where we want to put it as some reference in nodes. So here, as we had card data as a resource, here's the card that is node that will actually render our card, and yeah, it needs to know what to render, right? So we need to provide the ID, and this is a node that we will create in editor. So like when we create some scene, and yeah, we need to provide ID, but at this point you probably guess that yeah, I'm not a fan of providing those IDs as a string because of all the reasons. So what we can do, we can add those few simple lines of code that will just create the same exported property, but not as a string, but as a enum. And this will be the result. Now in the inspector, in the Godot editor, instead of a text field, we have drop-down list where we have all our cards, all our IDs as a list to select from. And it even works pretty good when you have hundreds of those, because if you type like few first letters, it will just jump to the ID that you need. So we are safe in both in code and in editor to not make a typos and use only the cards that are actually existing. But you could think that we are safe from all the problems. Not, we are not. We can be more safe. We can validate our YAML with static validation, because yeah, we won't make a typo using the cards, but we can still make a typo defining the cards. Yeah, with this YAML that is scary and technical, we can make typos. Well, there is a solution for that. It's named JSON schema, but it's also working for YAML. We don't have time to go deep into that. Most important thing is that you can define a schema that will have constraints on how your YAML is defined. And here we define that we have our objects that needs to have property tags, and this property tags is an array of strings, and we have some other properties defined. How to use it? If you are using VS Code, then with the YAML extension, you can just in project settings match the schema to the cards, to the YAML, and then in your YAML, when you edit it, when you type something that is not valid, yeah, you make a typo in the property name or something like that, it will mark it in red, so you will fix it immediately. But also, we can rely on that if you are working with someone else or in bigger team, that everyone will use properly configured VS Code. So let's do the validation also in our code when we load this YAML. So this is our code that we had, and we can add a few more lines that are not really that different. We read the schema with the same methods as before. And we have this one-line schema validate, also from this awesome YAML library, that will validate our YAML against the schema, and we will print errors, or we can abort, or we can crash to desktop, whatever you like at this point. So we are totally safe and everything is great, right? No. Because we can still make more errors. We have those tags that are assigned to all the cards, right? But it's those tags, in our case, in this example, are quite dynamic. We have maybe not as much tags as cards, but we still have quite a lot. So it doesn't make sense to list all those tags in the schema, because those are like changing, and those also have their own properties and so on. So we have a separate source of those tags, the list of those tags. So it would be good to make sure that we won't reference any tags that are not existing. So here in this part of the code where we were actually creating the card data resource, we can do exactly that when we are reading YAML, reading tags from YAML. We can check if those tags actually exist. Yeah, the data tags is a list of the tags that we also read before. So now with the static validation for the schema and dynamic validation for the values, I would say we are quite safe. Okay, let's do some fancy things then. Probably you won't like reloading your whole Godot editor each time you edit this YAML, right? You add new cards, you add new resources, and yeah, you want to use them in the editor, you want to use those IDs and so on, and probably you don't want to restart your Godot every time. So it would be great to hot reload the data every time we change the YAML. Yeah, that's totally possible. Again, a few lines of code. First thing that we do is actually like load the data on startup. And if you are in the game, that's probably the end. Yeah, we have this return if you are not in editor. However, theoretically, you can do this in the game as well. Maybe you are reading data like from some mods or whatever, and you want to hot reload it as well. Modders will love you for that, I guess. But yeah, you can also easily crash then if you are not taking precautions. Anyway, but if we are in the editor, we want to get notified if the YAML changes, and that's totally possible. The file watcher is a separate script that's too long to put it here, but I will link the GitHub at the end. And yeah, every time we detect that a YAML file changed, was modified, we just reload the data, we reload the ID script, and we send some signal to notify about it, so we can react in different parts of the code. Okay, and last thing, cherry on top, YAML is scary and technical and so on, and doesn't render our images, so yeah, let's just do it ourselves. In one evening, you can totally do such a view. You add new tab to the Godot editor where you can render all your data in any way you want. For example, as a nice table with rendered images and everything. And yeah, then you can see everything at glance. Like you see all the images loaded, all the dynamic data that you loaded. You don't have to expand arrays if you write everything down here, and you can format it however you want, because well, you also need to create this whole thing manually and you have to maintain it, which yeah is some effort. And while technically possible, like out of the box, probably on the first iteration it won't be editable. You need to edit YAML still. Well, but if you have time, you can improve it and make it editable. Here should be live demo, but I don't think we have much time. So I will point you to the GitHub repo where this demo is. But at this point, maybe some of you already decided that, yeah, this whole presentation wasn't for you and totally isn't your solution to your problems, but you still have a lot of resources. So just to let you know, there is alternative. This is totally not mine, but this is quite awesome plugin for Godot, Yard, yet another resource database that operates on that like traditional Godot resources, custom resources, and generates this table similar to what we had, even kinda better, and allows to edit resources here. Still, I think when you have hundreds of resources, I would prefer YAML, but maybe if you have a few dozen, yeah, check it out. It may be something for you. Okay, and with that, that's the end this presentation and the full demo that I didn't have time for to show, but with everything implemented, all the code is on GitHub, and also the game that has those YAMLs, and I can tell you more than one, and hundreds of cards and more to come, is from few days on Steam as a demo. So you can wishlist it and everything. Thank you.